Good morning. It's DJ and PK. It's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Welcome in on a Wednesday morning, and happy New Year's Eve to all of you. The Utah Jazz got beat last night by the Boston Celtics, 129-119. Welcome into the best of the postgame show. It was a high-flying first half. The Jazz had the lead at the break. The game was wide open, up and down. The Jazz in transition. The Celtics really, I think, would have preferred a half-court game. But the Jazz were flying. But, man, Boston at halftime, they really got it going. They came out and put a 40-point third quarter on the Jazz, and then in the fourth quarter, when the Jazz really needed to score and get back in it, the Celtics locked them up and held them to 23 points, and that was that. Boston gets the win. The Jazz dropped to 6-7 in the month of December. Let's start the post-game show with the head coach. Here is Will Hardy after the loss.
You know, tough game. You're in the game the whole time. I felt like in general, our attention to detail, especially defensively, just wasn't what it needed to be tonight. A few too many coverage mistakes, a few too many instances where we're not giving the appropriate urgency on the ball. Like we look like we're shocked that they're attacking us one-on-one. Those are areas that I feel like our team has made strides in over the last couple of weeks, and so it's not something where I would want to sound the alarm bell yet. But it just felt like a night where we were kind of like a half step behind mentally, like a little bit slow to react, a little bit slow to communicate on the defensive side. Offensively, I think our team continues to show that no matter who plays, no matter what the lineups are, we've been pretty hard to guard. Obviously the turnover and possession game, we didn't win tonight, which puts you in a tough spot in the NBA. So overall, I think it was mostly about just our attention to detail defensively. I think we had probably 15 points in that game at least that we didn't need to give up. It's a really good team, a lot of good players. There's moments where, they do a good job executing and you get put in a tough spot and they make shots. But I do feel like there's probably 15-ish points in that game we don't need to give up.
There's a few rotation decisions I want to ask you about. Taylor starting, Ski resting, and then I think you finished with Walt at the end there. What were you thinking on kind of how you played everyone tonight?
Yeah, we felt like it was a good opportunity to get a look at some more of our young guys tonight. Svi has been playing a lot for us this year, an opportunity for him to take care of himself, but also for us to really see our young players against a quality opponent. I felt like Taylor in the first group, playing off of Lowry and Keontae, we felt like they were going to guard Nurk with their center no matter when he was in. So we felt like it was a chance to maybe see Taylor play against some smaller perimeter players, see if he could have an impact on the glass. You also don't have to, you're not required to make as many plays playing with Keontae and Lowry. So Taylor's been shooting the ball great, catch and shoot, playing on the second side. So it was a group we wanted to get a look at. And I thought, towards the end, Walt's shooting, lately he's shot the ball well. We felt like with the way they were guarding us, we were going to need to make some threes down the stretch to try to claw back into the game. One thing that I'm very cognizant of is starting to pit our young players against each other. And that's not something that we do internally, but I recognize that based on our roster, where we're at, those things can happen, and I think they're really unhealthy. Like, it's not Isaiah versus Walt. Like, that's not what we're doing. They're both good players. They both bring things to the table. Zay has played down the stretch of a lot of games for us. In this particular instance, it just felt like Walt maybe was going to give us a spark. And so it wasn't really a decision about not going with Zay or somebody else. I felt like Walt was pretty engaged and in the flow of the game. I thought he got a couple of looks he just missed.
Did you see anything different from the Celtics in the fourth quarter? What did they do defensively to slow you down?
Yeah, they guarded us pretty consistently for the whole night. We got a little bit stuck in certain moments because we didn't do a good job creating the small advantage. We've really been fighting hard as a team to work the first 8 seconds of the clock and try to build the advantage is the phrasing that we use. We know that it's not going to be one action that's going to just blow the game open. Sometimes it's going to take 2 and 3 of them. I felt like some of our early offense actions, we just didn't create enough of an advantage. There's also some shots that you get that you just miss, but we struggled to create the advantage early, and it put us in spots late in the clock where we had to make some tough plays.
Is that a Derek White thing? I mean, you've seen him up close. Is that something he's good at?
Yeah, Derek's an elite defender. I didn't feel in the game that it was because of Derek. Derek made some great defensive plays, had a couple of those blocked shots around the free throw line. He's an all-time favorite person that I've ever been around in the NBA. He's really smart and like I said, an incredible defender, but I didn't feel like it was him that was disrupting us. I thought the rest of their team also, their physicality, they got into our body pretty good, didn't let us run freely.
There is Will Hardy after the defeat. Now, a couple stars in this game. One of them, Keontae George, 37 points in 39 minutes, 2 off his career high. And it was an efficient night shooting the ball. He was 13 of 24 shooting the ball. He was 6 of 12 from behind the arc and only missed 1 free throw and still had the rebounds and the assists to go with it. It was a good all-around performance. Here is Keontae after the game.
What was kind of the difference maker in that fourth quarter that allowed Boston to pull away with this one?
Kudos to them. I think, I kind of ran the same play down the stretch. Derek White, I thought he was good down the stretch. Obviously getting to his pull-up. Trey Ball started falling for him a little bit. So I honestly think that run between Derek White and a little bit of Pritchard, at that point, I kind of feel like the game got away from us. Obviously, I didn't feel like we were out of the game, but I feel like, when Derek White was getting to the paint, like I said, getting to his pull-up, I feel like that allowed Boston to kind of get over the hump.
There is Keontae George now. Let's get to Jusuf Nurkic. He went to the podium after the game. Really strong performance. 26 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists. Not enough for the Jazz, but a really good night of work from Jusuf Nurkic. Here he is with the media at the podium.
Nurk, what do you like about playing pick and roll with Keontae?
It took us a little bit, especially Keontae, to figure out, they can get backdoors and great screens. And so I think that relationship is getting better and better. I do believe we can still get better. But he's just making right play. And I told him, I feel like if you want to be great and you have a lot of responsibility, as a great player, obviously you can get a lot of touches, but you have to make sure that all the teammates, when you see them in the right spot, make a right play. So I think he's doing a great job game after game.
Is there someone in the league that he reminds you of, either you played with or against?
When I said at the beginning of the year, I think I was capping just because, I'm not saying stuff to say stuff. I think he really reminded me of, that combo guard we had in Portland at that time, CJ and Dame. Just the way he moved and play, not necessarily same style of play, but, just how easy game come to him and I told him when I got here, I feel like you're a really good player and just believe that I'm going to be by your side regardless of the outcome, same day, every day. And I think he really took off confidence-wise, and you just love to see that as a young guy.
Will's said your screening is a large part of what you guys do offensively, and Obviously, some of that is just your size, but what are some of the technique things that allow you to be a good screener?
I mean, I've been doing my whole career, so nothing new, I guess, but just willing to sacrifice your stuff to sometimes I'm getting probably too long in screens, not roll. It looks like I want to try to pop, but I was trying to set screen for the player so I can, Lowry and Bryce and Keontae to get easy shot, open shot, and, can get both ways. But I feel like I'm willing to do that every play. It's something that is the big key for the big, like set actually screen and hold and I just slip, But give credit to the coach. He's been really nothing but great to me, the whole organization, trusting and be patient, and to all of us, especially with me early in the year. So, he's been really amazing to me.
There is Yusuf Nurkic at the podium. All right, the Utah Jazz fall to Boston 129 to 119, and the Jazz will be back in action. They're off tomorrow on New Year's Eve. They'll fly to L.A. They play the Clippers New Year's night. That is an 8:30 tip-off Utah time. Pre-game show will start on 97.5 The Zone at 7:30, and then the game will tip off at 8:30. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're talking hockey, and we're talking football. Mike Folta is going to join us. We're also going to hear from Sean Callahan, who covers Nebraska, and he'll look ahead to today's Las Vegas Bowl and the changes in the Big Ten with Kyle Whittingham going to Michigan. That's coming up. Mike Folta next, talking Utah Mammoth hockey. Stay with us. This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone, and we are joined now by Mike Folta, Utah Mammoth radio voice. Mike, good morning.
Hey, good morning, guys. Catching me right before we hop on a jetliner to cross the country and say hello to New York. We'll be in the Empire State for the ball drop, which will be pretty fun. But in the meantime, we're keeping up on all the Kyle Whittingham analysis. And look, our play-by-play guy on TV, Matt McConnell, is a huge Michigan State fan. And he had all the respect in the world for Kyle Whittingham. But then once he saw that maize and blue at the press conference, it broke his heart. It broke his heart because he had come to like Kyle, and now he is obliged to root against him as a Spartan. So at least somebody on the broadcast team feels very strongly about the move. I'm sure you guys and a lot of the listeners do as well. But strange times in the Utah sports landscape.
Kyle loved on a night off in the spring to go down and sit behind the glass and watch guys skate into each other and just blast each other into the boards. He's here for all the physicality and all the big hits you can provide.
He does. We had a bunch of stars at the game last night as well. We had Bubba Watson, two-time Masters champion, at the game last night. I believe Lowry Markkinen and Coach Will Hardy were there for the Jazz as well. They like to come quite often. So, yeah, it's been a who's who at the Delta Center for Mammoth games recently.
Yeah, I would guess you would see Kyle at Detroit to watch the Red Wings because he has long since been a hockey fan, and talking to him, he was excited to have the team here. My guess is that he will follow them from a distance because he's been to several games and he is a hockey guy. And the great thing now for us is that college football obviously ends here. The Utes finish up. There'll still be off the field stuff with coaching and whatnot and the transfer portal, as you know. But now, to me, now is the time we turn our attention and we really, really start to dig into this team to see what they're going to do this year. And immediately, right off the bat, I can argue of all the stretches of the season, January could be the most important.
I mean, you nailed it. You nailed it, PK. Like it is kind of a put up or shut up month for the Utah Mammoth. They call this stretch in the NHL like the dog days of the season a little bit. You're kind of right in the middle. You can't see the end. You can't see the light at the end of the tunnel quite yet. But Utah's next game will be the halfway point of the season. And we've got 15 games in the month of January coming up, including 3 in New York and New Jersey to start off. We'll play the New York Islanders on New Year's Day, and then we'll play the New Jersey Devils and the New York Rangers at Madison Square Garden. But a 7-game homestand coming up in January for this team as well. And this is a big homestand coming up for a team that hasn't played a lot of home games. The Mammoth, entering last night's home game against Nashville, Mammoth had played the fewest home games out of anybody in the entire league. So that's been a big disadvantage for this group. And now that starts to swing back in your favor, where you are playing some more of these home games coming up in January, February, and March, you got to find a way to take advantage of that. Mammoth weren't able to do that last night. They fell 4-3 to Nashville. But I think back to last year when things started to get harder and harder for Utah. And the Mammoth had a 7-game homestand last year, and they had a losing record. They went 3-4 during that homestand. So they didn't really capitalize on any momentum in that stretch that you would get from being home. Now, they had some injuries in last year's homestand. They lost Dylan Gunther. They lost Logan Cooley during that stretch of games. So they were fighting that battle from an injury perspective. But nobody's feeling bad for you in the NHL, and everybody's going to experience injuries at some point throughout the year. And so this 7-game homestand coming up that we'll get to in the middle of January is going to be a huge stretch for this team. And the month as a whole is going to be big. Utah is basically playing every other day. There's a couple of stretches of rest in there, but it's going to be a great opportunity for the Mammoth to climb into a wild card spot. They're only a game out right now. But if you start to slip in January, things can pile up on you quickly. And they did a little bit for Utah last year where you saw a couple teams kind of sneak up and put themselves in between the Mammoth and that playoff spot.
What happens in the last 10 minutes of a game when one slips away? Is it a lack of concentration? Is it just key mistakes? Are there flaws in the team being revealed? Because it looked like everything was going right, and then suddenly it was going wrong.
Yeah, I mean, last night is what you're talking about when Nashville scores twice in the span of a minute and a half to take the lead in the third period, and really nobody was sweating in the Delta Center all night. Like Utah was in front or it was tied for the whole game, but the Mammoth couldn't find a way to get that next goal, and they never made it a 2-goal game. And I think that is part of the story, DJ, where the Mammoth did let it slip away and they allowed those 2 goals in the third. I kind of look at it from the opposite side where Utah failed to score. They failed to extend the lead. The Mammoth had just so many chances in last night's game to extend the lead and to make it a 2-goal game. And they never once could do that. And it was everybody, right? Like everybody had opportunities. Nick Schmaltz had a bunch. The rookie Daniil Boot had some good looks in tight, but for whatever reason, the Mammoth weren't able to execute. And that's what you heard from guys in the postgame media scrums. Weren't able to execute and finish. And maybe you can expect that a little bit in the first game back from Christmas. You know, you're all full of eggnog and Christmas cookies and the like, but the execution on the offensive end was just off a little bit. But this is something that this team has to figure out. The Mammoth have blown I think the second most leads in the NHL at this point. And so finding ways to finish games and be confident playing with the lead is something that winning teams are able to do. And that's something that this team is still trying to find a way to do this season.
Yeah, Mike, I mean, that's it. You listen to the Bear Torney talk about that, and it sort of seems like a broken record a little bit, and he was going off on that against following the Nashville game. And so the word that comes to mind, I think that he's been using, and I can see why he's using it, is frustrating because they're there to be able to put themselves in that position that you speak of, but not quite getting to where they need to be. It's close. It's tantalizing. You can see it. It's not way down the road. It's like right in front of your face. And, and then Cooley's goes down and all, and that's a blow. And it just seems like there's a level of frustration, and they've got to find a way to just break through and get on the other side of it. And it seems it's like Phil Mickelson, he had to find a way to win the major. and he was trying, and he was there, and he was there. Once he got it, he leaps in the air. He had that 4-inch vertical leap that has become famous when he made that putt at Augusta. And then he goes on and he wins a few more, right? And so there needs to be that breakthrough. How do they go about, or what do they need to get that breakthrough? Because it's there to be had.
Yeah. I think the golf analogy is a good one, and mentioned Bubba Watson being at the game last night at the Delta Center. I think back to his shot at the Masters. I can't. Would this have been 2014 where he hits it out of the pine straw?
Yeah,
and I think he plays he was it a slice that he played, or he had some crazy angle to hit it out of the pine straw, out of trouble, and get it to a safe area and have a chance at par. But it's the plays like that where you just have to make a play. Like, there's no analytics that are going to make you feel any better at the end of the day. You have to find a way to get it done. Comes down to execution. I think poise, just like we talk about this last year a lot, haven't talked about it this year as much because I think the team's been better at it, but managing games and being poised in those crucial moments. Utah took a penalty in the third period last night that led to the game-tying goal from Steven Stamkos, who's one of the great goal scorers of our league. And I mentioned analytics not making you feel any better, but I am still going to try here for a second, because we get the numbers, the broadcast team, we get the numbers from our friends over at SportLogic. And one of the numbers that they give us is expected goals, which is a little bit hocus pocus, but it does kind of give you a snapshot into who controls the game. And the expected goals is basically the analytics community just telling you how many goals they expected you to score based on your scoring chances, based on where they came from, based on, the quality of those chances. Utah was expected to score twice as many goals as Nashville last night. Utah was expected to score like 4.5. Nashville was expected to score 2. And to put that, like, if you're not familiar in the hockey analytics world, I'm going to put it in like football terms. Say you double up a team in yardage, right? You double up a team in yardage, you're expected to win that game, right? But turnovers and penalties, things like that can totally negate the yardage stat at times. And that's kind of what we had last night. Utah was the better team. And if they play that game 10 times, Utah probably wins 7 or 8 of those games. But Nashville is an experienced team. They've got guys like Steven Stamkos, who's a legendary goal scorer. They've got guys like Philip Forsberg and Ryan O'Reilly, who have been doing this for a long time. And those guys stuck with their game and came through in the big moments, whereas the Mammoth are still trying to figure that part out.
In all those analytics, are there any parts of the game, are they a little short everywhere and that's or is there one part of the game where there's something you look at and think that's got to get better? There's a big gaping hole here and they got to improve.
Ooh, that's hard to say. It's hard to say, DJ. Like, I think this team has played really well the last couple of weeks, and we're saying that. And in the 12 games without Logan Cooley, Utah is now 4-8, which is not good. Like, that record's objectively bad.
Right.
And yet, in most of those games without Cooley, without your most dynamic offensive player, you're walking away and thinking, like, man, like, we played pretty well. We lost to LA. We lost to Florida the first couple games without Cooley. We played pretty well against good teams, just came up short by 1 goal. I think DJ, one area that we were focusing on the broadcast last night are 1-goal games. Like, the Mammoth do not have a great record in 1-goal games. They're like right at 500, which, okay, it's not terrible, but you'd like to see that be better. Whereas Nashville was a team that's below Utah still in the standings, and yet they have a positive record in 1-goal games. Like, they find ways to pull those out late. And I attribute that a lot to their age and experience, where Utah is still a younger team. Mammoth have a bunch of cup winners on this roster. So you'd like to think that this group can figure this out a little bit better than what they have so far. But you think of the guys who are driving the play, especially offensively for Utah, the guys who are out there in the big moments, guys like Dylan Guenther, Clayton Keller, Logan Cooley when he's healthy, JJ Peterka. those guys are pretty young still. And so even though the Mammoth do have a lot of cup winning experience, most of that's on the back end. They're defensemen. They don't have as much of the experience up front with the forwards. So it's hard to put a finger on it, but winning these 1-goal games is something that you're going to have to start doing here, especially against divisional opponents, because the schedule is not going to get any easier opponent wise for Utah. The schedule is going to get easier in terms of rest and recovery, things like that, and travel. But you're going to be playing a whole bunch of divisional games throughout the next few months, and a lot of those are going to be tight games. We've seen a ton of tight games in the NHL this season, and winning those close ones, especially when it's tight late, when you grip the stick a little bit tighter, when everybody is a little bit more aware, that's when you've got to buckle down and find a way to at least earn a point.
We've got a situation at goaltending. What is the plan going forward, short-term, long-term, rest of season?
Yeah, so Vitek Vanacek was put on IR, and the rule with injured reserve is that you have to be out a week, essentially. And he was put on IR. Karel Vejmelka. I don't know. I might have said Vitek Vanacek.
Yeah, you did.
Karel Vejmelka was put on IR.
Yeah.
And but that was retroactive to the 23rd. So that's when it starts. So today's the 30th. So he's eligible to play in Utah's next game, which is coming up on New Year's Day. So he was skating at practice, and we're not sure exactly what the injury is. Hockey people love to be mysterious about injuries, and goalies are known for being a little weird. So maybe they're being extra mysterious. But we saw Karel, Utah's number 1 goaltender, at practice skating. So that leads me to believe that it's not overly serious, and I wouldn't be surprised if he plays sooner rather than later, even as early as Utah's next game. Again, not sure the severity or the nature of the injury, but he was practicing. Didn't look like there was anything wrong with him, just from a bystander's perspective. So would expect Utah's bell cow to be back in soon.
Is it really the case you think of the team is good, but you take a dynamic player like Cooley off it, and they just don't have the depth to replace him, whereas another team, a better team, might?
Yeah, I think you look at the contenders, and that's certainly the cup contenders. Yeah, and that's certainly the case, right? They just have more of that star power compared to a Utah team. But again, I kind of alluded to it. Like, I think the team has played really well without Logan Cooley. And I think one thing we've seen is Dylan Guenther, Utah's other like really young star, has kind of stepped up in Cooley's absence. We actually saw this last year in a few games where Guenther was playing and Cooley wasn't. Guenther stepped up and was scoring goals. And one thing you'll notice, and just keep an eye out for this while you watch Mammoth games, Guenther plays a little bit more straight line and attempts fewer skilled plays, skilled passes when Cooley's out of the lineup. And I think because when Cooley's in the lineup, him and Guenther both have so much skill, they play together. Sometimes they can try and do a little too much. It seems that they're looking for that highlight reel play, that tic-tac-toe passing play to walk the puck into the back of the net. Whereas when Cooley's out, you see Guenther kind of just put his nose down a little bit more and play harder and play a little bit grittier maybe. And that's been working for him because he's scored, I believe it's 7 goals now without Logan Cooley in the lineup. And he has scored 8 goals in the month of December here, which is actually tied for a team record in terms of goals in a calendar month. So Dylan Guenther has elevated his play without Logan Cooley. Another element to that, DJ, is that Nick Schmaltz, who's traditionally been a winger, has moved over to center, and he's played really well at center, which is a harder position to play than wing. There's typically more defensive responsibilities. I would compare it to like being a middle linebacker as opposed to an outside linebacker. You're a little bit more involved, and maybe that's not a perfect one-for-one comparison, but there are more responsibilities as a center, and Schmaltz has taken that on really well, kind of filling that number 1 center role that Logan Cooley has left vacant. And Utah doesn't have great center depth as a team compared to other playoff teams. But I still like the way that Jack McBain and Barrett Hayden, two more centers on the second and third lines, have played behind Schmaltz, because those guys, they win a lot of battles. They do a lot of the little things. Jack McBain was in one kind of mood last night. I mean, he was hitting everything that moves. If he would have seen PK on the glass, he probably would have broken through it and given him a jolt or something like that. But he was hitting everybody, and he does more than that too. He provides offense, and he wins faceoffs. So I think without Logan Cooley, Utah is definitely less dynamic and less scary off the rush and in the offensive zone. But Nick Schmaltz has stepped up, and Dylan Guenther has stepped up as well.
Speaking of McBain, there was a lot of pushing and shoving going on. It seemed like every couple of minutes you're on the verge of something, and then it's just really, just a lot of talk and hugging each other and whatnot. I'm wondering, is that a level of maybe a little bit of a frustration, or was just as in the game presented itself to have it be where these guys are just touching each other like they were?
Oh, I think it was just too much time with the family over Christmas.
Is that what it was?
The guys were all wound up from all the warm and fuzzy family time over the Christmas break. They needed to hit something.
Okay.
But I think a lot of that had to do with Nashville too. That's a very prickly Nashville team, and the Mammoth weren't going to get pushed around. That's for sure. You saw McBain in the middle of it a lot. You saw Sean Dursey in the middle of it a lot. It was a really fun hockey game, and Dursey told us as much on the radio. Mammoth just couldn't find a way to come up with a result.
Mike, we'll leave it right there. Enjoy that plane flight to the Big Apple. You're going to be able to unpack, set up shop there in Gotham for a few days.
Yeah, I got my Depends with me when I make it over to Times Square to check out the ball drop. So if you see,
I'll be watching, man.
Screaming with the.
Do something. Do something to stand out, because they always pan the crowd.
I'll bring a Kyle Whittingham jersey or a poster or something like that. How about that?
Nice.
Go blue. You don't like the blue either.
Yeah,
You're
right.
a Purdue guy.
Oh yeah. Look, Kyle Whittingham at Michigan will never lose to Purdue. Like, that is the last guy I want to see in Ann Arbor. He's going to steamroll us for a decade. But no, enjoy it, guys, and we'll see you here in a couple weeks when the Mammoth are back home.
There is Mike Folta talking Utah Mammoth hockey. We'll take a break. When we come back, Sean Callahan covers the Nebraska Huskers, and we will get a look ahead to the Vegas Bowl and his thoughts on Kyle Whittingham's move to the Big Ten. That's next. Stay with us. DJ PK, and we're joined by Sean Callahan, publisher of Husker Online, part of On3.com. Sean, good morning.
Good morning, guys.
Sean, you'll have to forgive us. We're a little distracted. We kind of forgot there was a game.
Yeah, it kind of has that feel. I mean, obviously both teams have been out here all week, but there just isn't a lot of buzz and stuff. And obviously with what you guys have, I mean, Utah shows up to Vegas with Kyle Whittingham, and I think he addressed the team at their team hotel before taking off to Michigan. So it's been an odd bowl week with even some of the opt-outs and other things that you're kind of trying to figure out as we get into to tomorrow.
Yeah, we see that Utah came into it. I haven't seen the latest line.
14.
I'll be 14, yeah. I'll be in Vegas soon enough to cover this game, and I won't bet a penny because that's not who I am. But I was surprised it was that big. But, you look at Nebraska without their quarterback, Raiola, taken off, and I know they've had some other situations. I think they had an injury to their best defensive back safety who's not going to play, and so there's a little bit thing going on. But from the Nebraska perspective, how ready are they to be able to meet the challenge that Utah presents?
Yeah, they're missing a lot of guys. I mean, Emmett Johnson, All-American running back of the year in the Big Ten. No Dylan Raiola. Yeah. Rocco Spindler was their, one of the higher profile O-line transfers from Notre Dame, and he's out for this game. And then Deshaun Singleton's probably their best defender and captain, and he's not playing. And then Dasan McCullough, who was a high-priced addition they brought in from the transfer portal, who's played at Indiana and Oklahoma before getting to Nebraska. So those guys are out. I think the thing that's hard to gauge is the quarterback, TJ Lateef. UCLA game, he looked really good. He could run, he could move. And then he had to play at Penn State, and then he played Iowa. And they were cold weather games, physical defensive games, and then he hurt his hamstring in the Iowa game. So he didn't look particularly great in those two games. They say he's healthy. It's, indoor stadium. Weather's not going to be an issue for him. So I think he's the guy that if Nebraska has a chance to make this a game, it's on Lateef and how well he plays. And, just being a Big Ten team, I think Big Ten teams, the style in this league is a little bit different. I would expect they're going to try to run the ball when you see Utah gave up so many rushing yards late in the year, especially in that Kansas State game where, they gave up almost 500 rushing yards to the Wildcats and were able to win that game still. But you would have to think with their, even without Emmett Johnson, they've got a couple of young running backs they're going to try to get going in this game.
Nebraska started 6-2. They're 7-5. It didn't go well down the stretch. November was pretty rough. What went wrong in November? Was it as simple as the quarterback, losing a quarterback for the last 3 games? Are there other things, and is there something that Utah can attack that everybody was picking on in November?
Yeah, it really changed in the USC game. They were up by 7. They had the ball around the 30, and then Dylan Raiola gave up a sack, a fumble, and his season was over at that point. Nebraska at that point, if they were going to win the game on that drive and go up by 2 scores on USC in the fourth quarter, and that's an 8-2 Nebraska team at that point because they would have still beat UCLA the next week before going to Penn State and Iowa. So that moment really changed their season. They've struggled with their defensive alignment and their front. They just got torched on the ground at Penn State and then against Iowa where they just weren't able to slow down. So that's the matchup in this game you got to worry. Well, Matt Rule fired his defensive coordinator, fired his defensive line coach, and they've done a lot of shifting around. They have a new D coordinator. He's not coaching this game, Rob Orich from San Diego State. But I expect Nebraska to probably line up a little bit differently. Phil Snow, former Carolina Panthers D coordinator, has been the interim DC. They moved Mike Eckler, who was a former Tennessee, USC, Georgia coach. He's been the special teams coordinator here, but he's one of their best defensive coaches on the staff. He didn't coach any defense. He's now coaching the D-line with Matt Rule. Matt Rule has been coaching the D-line with Eckler. So they have been all hands on deck with this defensive line approach, and we'll see if it makes any difference because that has been the issue. The key stats on Nebraska's defense, only 11 sacks this year, and they only have 6 interceptions. So they have not gotten the quarterbacks good very well at all, and then they have not been able to force very many interceptions on the back end.
Yeah, what's crazy as you try to evaluate that, you've got those stats there, and that's not good enough. But at the same time, Utah is going to be without 2 of its NFL offensive linemen right there, and one of them, Fano, who's probably going to be a top 10 pick, very well could be expected to be first offensive lineman taken in this draft, and Lomu also a first-round pick we're anticipating, so you got that going on there. So you don't really know. That's what's crazy about these bowl games now is they're almost like the first game of next season because it seems like, and maybe the playoff teams don't have it, but it seemed like everybody else and in particular Utah and Nebraska, who we're talking about, got so many significant changes. Do we really know what to anticipate because there's going to be so much new personnel?
No, I agree. And some of the changes and that tackle matchup, I'm really going to be zoning in on that because Nebraska does have 2 pretty good Russians. Williams Nwaneri is a former 5-star. He's a redshirt freshman. And, he's been coached up now all month, and they're going to probably line him up differently is my guess. And then Keona Davis is an NFL guy on the edge. So they'll have 2 guys that will line up, on the edges. If Utah's tackles aren't ready for that, that could be a matchup that could change things in this game without those 2 tackles playing for the Utes. I wouldn't, as a better, the line is huge. It seems, I would say Utah more by 7.5 feels more right than 14. But a lot of that depends on Lateef, and if Lateef plays well in this game for Nebraska. But again, what's the Whittingham distraction too? They've done a great job. I talked to Morgan Scally on the 26th, and he's a great guy, and you can tell the players like him. But what kind of distraction is that going to be for this team, just having all that going on as they got to the bowl trip?
The question that can't be answered, it's why we watch the games right there, right? How quickly can the players flip the switch and move on? Defensively, I would think it's pretty quick because he's been the defensive coordinator. He's a consistent voice. Maybe it's a little different on the offensive side of the ball, especially with all the rumors about the coordinator leaving. And I wonder how unsettling it is. We've seen bowl games in the past, and maybe you have too, where coaches are either looking for jobs, are about to take jobs, or have taken jobs, and it doesn't usually go well.
Yeah, it can be a big distraction, and especially if you're an assistant coach and you're leaving, and you're when you get back to your hotel, your time is spent, talking to your new boss or your new school, trying to figure things out, because the bowl game in the grand scheme of it's not that big of a deal for what's next. And have they even said at this point how many coaches are going to go with Whittingham? Or are there going to be some players that go to Michigan?
Yep.
Those are all things that are going to happen pretty quickly, I think, when this game ends.
Scally has a track record of applying pressure, blitzing, and I think he's really, really good at what he can do. We've seen it. We saw it against the Heisman Trophy winning quarterback Williams when they played SC, is they line up then, and I talked to him about it on the field after the Pac-12 title game a few years back as they were setting up to do the awards ceremony and all that stuff, and he was just standing off to the side, and we've known him. A funny thing that you probably can't use, but I'll just throw it at you. So when he gets done, he graduates with that Fiesta Bowl team, right, and that BCS busting team, and then he waits a year before he goes into coaching. And you know what he did? He did sports radio, and this show that he had started at 10 o'clock right after our show ends. So for a year, we saw him every day in the studio. And that's how long we've known him. And he was a local high school kid here. And we think the world of him. And so it's cool to see what he does to apply pressure and make adjustments to the adjustments based on the adjustments that the offensive people make at the line of scrimmage. So with all that, and your head's probably spinning, thinking, what's this guy talking about? How do you think that Nebraska will be able to handle the pressure, the quarterback, because Scally's going to bring it, and he's going to bring a bunch of guys?
What's funny about that sports radio, Bill Bush was his position coach. Well, my coworker that I work with at On 3 Husker Online, Steve Sipple, does a radio show now in Lincoln with Bill Bush, a former Utah coach that coached Morgan Scally. And we joked about that when he got here. But, yeah, the pressure thing, I think what they're going to do is just get rid of the ball quickly. The real problems Nebraska had with Dylan Raiola this year was he held the ball too long. 4-second plus type holds where he just wouldn't throw it away, or he tried to do the Mahomes stuff, and it just didn't work well for him. When Dylan Raiola was successful, the ball got out quickly. So I do think with TJ Lateef, you're going to see Dana Holgorsen really get the ball out quickly, move him around. Nebraska will be down, as I mentioned, that one offensive lineman, Rocco Spindler. Tyler Knack, coincidentally a former Utah Ute, will be starting at that guard position in the place of Rocco Spindler. So there is one Utah connection on this roster, but I think the key will be getting it out of his hand quickly, making him move around a little bit more. They're not going to just let TJ Lateef sit back there and hold it too long, is my guess.
In the Big Ten, how do people look at the Big Ten in this new era where money matters? We've all followed college football a long time. We know historically who the best programs were and who you could count on to be near the top of the league. But it seems like teams are making headway. Wisconsin, Michigan State have fallen well off the pace. Obviously, Indiana has broken out. Now Penn State and Michigan have new coaches. How do you assess the top of the league in kind of tiers as far as how stable a program and how things look for them over 2 or 3 years? Because I don't think we dare look any further than that.
Yeah, Oregon is positioned obviously very well with Ohio State. Those two programs, Cignetti, it's amazing what they're doing in Indiana with probably half the budget of Oregon, for what they're doing with their roster. But Oregon's gotten to a point where every offseason they can go out and just find the best free agents and buy them. Nebraska was the finalist for Isaiah World, the tackle from Nevada. And, I think the number got up to a point where Nebraska was in the 1 point whatever number, and Oregon just kept going higher, and they lost Isaiah World to Oregon at that point. So that's what they can do. I think USC is doing that too. The reports are that they paid their entire recruiting class essentially in advance so they don't have to count that number against the rev share number. So Lincoln Riley and USC and their money has been a big thing as well. Michigan now moving forward, it'll be interesting to see how they come out of all this with a coaching change in the portal. I mean, we're seeing it in the Big 12 with Iowa State right now, just a disaster of the coaching change. They lost their entire roster. A lot of those guys are going to go to Penn State and whatnot. But Nebraska is well positioned. I mean, they're not in the Oregon, USC realm or Ohio State realm in terms of the money, but they're right below that. I mean, they will have about $25 million moving into next year. They'll have their full $15 million for football for rev share, and they're going to have another $10 million spun off from the Playfly sports deal that can be utilized for NIL, true NIL deals that would go through the clearinghouse, which that's kind of what a lot of these teams are doing, is trying to find a way to get that additional money you need, and they're taking their money that they would have received from the multimedia rights deal, and they're converting that into money that would be used for true NIL deals for their football players.
I know you can't speak for the entire league, but I'm kind of put you on the spot and ask you to do it anyway. In terms of what do you think the reception is of Kyle Whittingham coming into the league to be a head coach at Michigan, of all places?
Well, I think a lot of people have a lot of respect for him. I mean, I know when Nebraska's tried to hire coaches over the years, his name's always come up here. But yeah, what he's done, the consistency, I mean, he's kind of been another version of Kirk Ferentz in terms of the longevity of what he's brought, the stability, the consistency. But I just don't know if anybody could have predicted that this move was going to happen. I mean, at first we're like, oh, this is going to be kind of a retirement. He's done. And then quickly said, no, he's going into the transfer portal. But I think for Michigan, they came out of this as well as they could have, knowing, they were waiting on Kalen DeBoer, but that just wasn't going to happen. DeBoer wasn't going to leave his team in the middle of the playoff run. So if you don't get DeBoer, I think Whittingham is about as good as it gets, and he's going to provide that stability, the consistency that Michigan wants. He's going to play a physical style. My only question is, like, how versed is he at the level of roster building that it takes in the Big Ten with the money? Because in the Big 12, it's starting to get there with BYU and Texas Tech, but it's a high level league here in terms of what you're going against in Ohio State and Oregon, and the type of recruiting and the type of NIL stuff you have to do off the field to kind of get your team to play at the highest level to be in the playoffs.
How long is it going to take for Nebraska to get back, or with the league change and the way everything has changed with NIL, or the glory days of the 90s, and there's a new world order now for the Huskers?
I mean, it's frustrating for the Nebraska fans because you really need to be about a 9-3 team to be in the playoff. And they got to 7 this year, and they had every one of their losses, there were just things that you could, all right, they could have easily won the game against Michigan. They easily could have won the game against USC. I mean, that's the difference every year for Nebraska. They have these 1 or 2 games that take what could have been maybe a 9-win type year and knock it down to a 6 or 7-win type year. That's been the last couple of seasons for Nebraska, and they've got to figure out how to get over that hump, and it's a hard hump to get over because when you talk about playing a 9-game conference schedule, there's just not a lot of margin for error. I mean, you play a tough game every week, and we're going to learn a lot about the SEC when they switch to 9 games. I mean, I think the SEC's been able to kind of hide their teams a little bit more because of that extra non-conference game, where everybody gets the extra win added to their season. That's going to be not going to be the case anymore. So that's going to be really fascinating to follow next year to see what the SEC looks like at this time when they add that extra win. But yeah, it's been a struggle. I mean, this is the 15th year Nebraska's been in the Big Ten, and they've only qualified for the conference championship game 1 time, which when they entered the league, they were regarded as one of the top teams.
We will leave it right there, Sean. We appreciate the time. Enjoy the game, however it unfolds with whichever players are out there, and we'll see how that goes. We appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thank you, guys. Happy New Year to you guys, and enjoy the game.
There's Sean Callahan covering Nebraska, looking at today's Vegas Bowl game. When we come back, what is trending? All the headlines next.